We are in Dallas, Texas, and this was a property that we originally lent on. The operator had a loan for about $3 million. The property appraised for 6.7, and they wanted to refi, bring some of the occupancy up, get it to a higher value, and then go into their permanent loan. And so we ended up lending them about $3.5 million. So that's about 52% loan to value. So when you're lending on properties, the best scenario is always when they're paying you every month and then they pay you off on your loan. That's the best outcome for us as lenders. And so when you're looking at properties to lend on, you want to make sure that they're in a position to succeed. But even with that, you will always have lenders that unfortunately become troubled and you have to take over the property. Their original plan was to borrow money, get their occupancy up so that they could get the revenue to have a higher valuation. And they ended up taking the cash flow that the property was making, and in a lot of cases it seemed like it was supporting lifestyle, started paying for cars and stuff like that. And so they stopped putting the money that the property was making into maintenance of the property, and then vacancy started increasing, and then they were in a position where they stopped paying us. So when we took over the property, the appraised value was $4.2 million. At this point we had $3.5 million in, and so we took the stance of figuring out what we could do to try to sell it for as much as we could. And so we focused on increasing the occupancy and then fixing some of the things that the past borrower neglected on. So we took the cash flow that was coming from the property to do this, which totaled about $530,000. That's what we eventually had to put in, but we did it through cash flow. So we didn't have to bring in more investor money to do it. And then a few months ago, we ended up selling the property for $5.4 million. And so in this scenario, which is not always the scenario, our investors got their money back, plus were able to make a gain. That one, there's properties where that unfortunately doesn't happen. In this scenario, we ended up in a decent position when it was all said and done, but it took us a lot of time and energy spent to try to get it to the point of being able to sell it. And so if you ask me what I'd prefer, well, I prefer they would have just kept paying us and then paid off the loan and we would have been on our way. Thankfully with this one though, we did pretty good.